Other than the chug of an air conditioner behind the woman's empty chair, the room was quiet. A yellow fluorescent light clung to the ceiling, and opposite the receptionist's desk, a heavy blue sofa, its legs removed for some reason, squatted on the floor. When I relented and finally sat down, the thing had sucked me in like a bucket. Beside me, our trial expert made the most of her wasted time. Resting one foot on the buckled coffee table, she calmly occupied herself with yesterday's notes and a list of chores for us to finish by late afternoon. Not much was supposed to happen when I left Washington for another round of discovery in Alabama. I was barely out of Harvard Law School, and the lawsuit was already 23 years old. Over the decades of courtroom battles, dozens of attorneys and law firms had traipsed through the litigation. By the time my name appeared on the pleadings as the most junior counsel at a public interest law firm, my boss had worked on the lawsuit for 13 years, longer than any lawyer who remained. He was well known, even famous among civil rights lawyers, and had little patience for a recent graduate who had never filed a brief in court, much less argued a case. The day before I arrived in Alabama, his instructions had been characteristically clear. Do what the expert tells you, when she tells you, and keep your mouth shut. Our trial expert had grown up in the South, and of the two of us, she was clearly in charge, our best chance that the trip would go smoothly. And she knew her way around places like Eufaula. Specializing in children with severe mental illness, she ran North Carolina's largest residential treatment facility for adolescents who were violent and assaulted. Confronted by the most condescending Eufaula employee, she could hold her smile, remember why she was there, and get what she needed. But even she had been shaken by the fear she had caught in a 13-year-old boy's vacant stare as she watched Eufaula's staff admit him to the facility. Take my advice and behave yourself. There's more going on at that place than you think, she had warned me, driving back into town after our first day touring the center. I stared out the waiting room's front window, surveying the gravel parking lot. The Alabama plates on our white rental car stared back at me. I glanced out at the sky, briefly noticing that the morning overhang of clouds had darkened. Halfway between the state capitol in Montgomery and the Gulf of Florida, the converted radar base had been one in a brotherhood of strongholds that guarded the skies of the nation's southern flank. Historians call the region Wiregrass Country, the heartland of the old Confederacy, covered with tall grass and piney woods, remembered for snipe hunts, rattlesnake festivals, and Baptist churches. Nearby settlements, like Opp and Andalusia, had given in to the lure of interstates and the promise of big box retail and fast food chains. But not the city of Eufaula. Great planters, merchants, and governors had come from Eufaula, lived and died there. In the center of town, their antebellum mansions survived as private residences, though they reeked of mildew in the summer heat. The Confederacy may have died, but politics had not. Eufaula's friends in Washington, D.C. and Montgomery had not even completed construction of the town's new 45,000-acre reservoir, complete with stocks of catfish, bass, and crappie, before granting it a new military outpost in the late 1950s. In a few short years, the base became one of the largest employers for miles, eventually surpassing the reservoir's tourist trade. But the Cold War had not even ended when pork barrel politics failed, and the base was closed barely a decade after it had opened. In the eyes of Eufaula's citizens, what had protected and sustained them had been taken away. They demanded that something replace it. Eyeing the vacant outpost and ever mindful of jobless constituents, state legislators made good on a promise to do something. A bill slipped through the legislature. Soon after, state crews arrived, the base grounds were swept, the buildings were painted, and the sign out front was changed to read Eufaula Adolescent Center. Meanwhile, bureaucrats in Birmingham, Montgomery, and Mobile, doing as they were told, searched through their lists of lost, abandoned, and unwanted children. Several dozen were surrendered to the care and employment of the local populace. And the largesse of public money and jobs streamed